No one suspected anything in the beginning. She had come from the hills, a beautiful woman with smooth, dark skin and hair so black it shone in the sun. Her name was Adaku, and every man's eyes followed her as she walked. The women whispered about her in jealousy, while the elders saw her as a sign of good fortune. Only I felt something strange the first day I saw her. My name is Madu, and I was just a simple boy back then, maybe 15 seasons old. I wasn't anything special, but I had a sharp mind and keen eyes. I noticed things most people didn't, and from the moment Adaku arrived, I noticed her. She had come to marry our Chief Eze, a strong and proud man. His wife had died years before, and it was said he was searching for a new bride to bear him sons. When Adaku arrived, no one questioned where she came from. The chief had met her on a journey and brought her back, announcing his plans to marry her. The village celebrated. We thought we had been blessed. But something was off. It was small things at first. She never seemed to eat in public. Whenever there was a feast, she would sit, smile, and pretend to take bites, but the food on her plate never disappeared. Then there was the way she spoke. Her words were always too sweet, too perfect, as if she were trying to fit in but didn't quite know how. The village children loved her, and she was always kind to them, but I saw the way her eyes would change when no one was looking. They would go cold, like the eyes of a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. I tried to tell my friend Chidi about it once, but he laughed and said I was being foolish. "She's just beautiful, Madu. You're probably just jealous," he teased. But I wasn't jealous. I was afraid. One evening, about a month after Adaku had arrived, strange things began to happen. People in the village started falling sick, one by one. The healers couldn't explain it. They tried every herb, every prayer, but nothing worked. The sickness would come in the night, a fever so hot that it left people delirious. Their skin would pale, and they would shake violently before slipping into a deep sleep from which they would never wake. The village was gripped with fear, but no one suspected Adaku. No one except me. I couldn't sleep that night. The air was too thick with dread. I kept tossing and turning in my small hut when I heard something strange, a soft, slithering sound, like a snake moving through dry leaves. I thought maybe I was imagining it, but the sound grew louder, and my curiosity got the better of me. I crept outside, careful not to wake my mother, and followed the sound through the dark village. The moon was bright that night, casting long shadows, and I moved quietly, hiding behind huts and trees. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I had a feeling it had to do with Adaku. Then I saw her. She was walking toward the forest, her steps unnaturally smooth, her head held high, and in her hand she carried something long and thin, like a staff. I followed her, keeping my distance, my heart pounding in my chest. What was she doing? We reached the edge of the forest, and that's when she stopped. I hid behind a tree, peeking out just enough to see her. She raised the staff in the air and began to speak in a language I had never heard before, a language that made my skin crawl. And then it happened. Her body began to change. Her skin rippled like water, and her face twisted, her eyes growing larger, her mouth stretching wide, revealing sharp fangs. Her legs fused together, and where once stood a beautiful woman, there was now a massive snake, coiled and menacing, its scales glistening in the moonlight. I couldn't breathe. My body froze in terror as I watched her slither through the grass, her tongue flicking in and out. She moved so fast, disappearing into the trees, and I was left there, alone, shaking. I ran back to the village as fast as I could. I wanted to scream to warn everyone, but I knew no one would believe me. Who would? A snake in human form. They would think I was mad. But I had to do something. The next morning, the sickness spread even further. 3 more villagers had fallen ill, including Chidi. I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. I ran to the elders and told them everything I had seen. At first they were skeptical, but the fear in my eyes must have convinced them. Chief Easy summoned Adaku, and she came to the meeting with her usual grace, smiling sweetly at everyone. But I saw it, the coldness in her eyes. "You accuse me of being a snake?" she asked, her voice soft and innocent. "Why would I harm the people I have come to love?" The elders exchanged uneasy glances. They didn't know what to do. No one had ever encountered such a thing before. But there was an old woman in Nina who had lived through more seasons than anyone in the village. She was the one who suggested the mirror. "In the old tales," she said, her voice raspy with age, "there is only one way to expose a snake hiding in human skin. They cannot bear to see their own reflection. The problem was, we had no mirrors in the village. The only place that had them was across the river, in a neighboring village. It was a day's journey, but it was our only hope. Chief Ezzy sent me and 2 other boys to fetch one. The journey was long and dangerous, and the whole time, I couldn't stop thinking about what I had seen. What if she knew we were onto her? What if she attacked the village while we were gone? But we had no choice. We returned the next evening, carrying a small polished mirror. It was nothing special, just a piece of glass with a wooden frame, but it felt like the most important thing in the world. The elders gathered the village, and Adaku was summoned once more. She came willingly, her face calm, but I saw the tension in her movements. The mirror was placed before her, and Chief Ezra spoke. "If you are truly one of us, then you will have no fear in looking into this mirror." Adaku hesitated just for a moment, but it was enough. The village grew silent, all eyes on her as she slowly approached the mirror. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. And then she looked. What happened next is something I will never forget. The moment her eyes met her reflection, her body convulsed. She let out a piercing scream, her skin rippling like before, and before our very eyes, she began to change. The beautiful woman we had all admired was gone, replaced by the monstrous serpent I had seen in the forest. The village erupted in chaos. People screamed and ran as Adaku. No, the snake lashed out, her fangs bared, her eyes wild with rage. The chief and the elders tried to fight her off, but it was Inenna who acted. She grabbed a burning torch and threw it at the snake, striking it on the head. The creature hissed in pain, writhing on the ground before slithering off into the night, disappearing into the darkness. We never saw her again. The sickness left the village after that, and those who had fallen ill slowly recovered. But the fear remained. No one spoke of Adaku or whatever she was, but we all knew the truth. We had been deceived by a creature far beyond our understanding. It started again with the nightmares. I thought I had buried those memories years ago, but they clawed their way back. Adaku was gone, vanished, as we all thought, but I could still see her serpent eyes in the darkness of my dreams. It had been years since Adaku's true form was revealed and she was driven away. Our village returned to normal, or at least we tried. I couldn't. No one believed me when I said I could still feel something lurking. At night, I heard the faint hiss of a snake in the wind. The trees would rustle without a breeze, and sometimes I'd wake up feeling like I wasn't alone in my own home. The village grew quieter in those days. At first, we thought it was nothing. Livestock disappearing, people growing restless, and a sickness spreading again. But it wasn't like before. This was worse. The sick weren't just weak. They were drained like something was feeding on their very life force. I couldn't shake the feeling that Adaku, or whatever creature she truly was, had returned. One evening, just as the sun dipped behind the hills, Inenna, the village elder, came to me. She was older now, much older, but her eyes still carried that sharp wisdom that could cut through any lie. "Madu," she said, her voice low. "I can feel it too." She didn't have to say what it was, I already knew. "The serpent," she continued, or something like it, "has come back." Inenna warned me that the tricks we used before, the mirror that revealed Adaku, might not work this time. She said that evil learns and adapts. What we faced now could be more dangerous, more cunning. She spoke of legends, of tools hidden deep in the mountains that could expose creatures like the serpent, tools stronger than mirrors. "We have no time to waste," she said, gripping my arm tightly. "Find it, or we all perish." The weight of her words crushed me. I had to act. I had to save the village once again, but I couldn't do it alone. I gathered a small group of friends, including Chidi, who had recovered from the last sickness, but who still bore the scars of that time. Together, we prepared to leave the village and venture into the mountains. The villagers whispered as we left, their faces twisted in fear. Some were already starting to abandon their homes, leaving for other villages, hoping to escape whatever curse had returned. As we traveled through the forests, the air grew colder. It was as if something was following us, watching from the trees. Each night, we heard strange noises, hissing but fainter than a snake. Chidi woke me one night, his face pale. He swore he saw something slithering through the trees, too fast to be human. We all started to feel it. We were not alone. The mountains loomed ahead, dark and silent. We met an old hermit living in a cave along the mountain's edge. His face was scarred and his eyes never settled on one spot for too long, as if he had seen things no human should. "You seek the truth stone," he said without us even speaking. His voice sent a chill down my spine. "But beware, it's not the stone that's the danger, it's what guards it." He didn't explain more, but we had no choice. We entered the mountains, knowing something worse than Adaku might be waiting. Deep inside the mountain, we found it, the truth stone. It was smaller than I had imagined, just a smooth, ordinary-looking rock in a pool of crystal-clear water. But I felt its power. As I reached for it, the ground began to rumble. That's when we saw it, the creature that guarded the stone. It wasn't just a snake. It was massive, its body twisting in ways that defied nature, made of shadows and malice. Its eyes glowed in the darkness, and its hiss echoed through the cave. I thought we were going to die. But the moment I grabbed the stone, it began to glow. The creature recoiled, its dark form unable to handle the light radiating from the stone. With a final hiss, it slithered back into the shadows, disappearing into the cracks of the mountain. We didn't waste any time. We had the stone. We had a way to expose the serpent or whatever evil that had returned to our village. By the time we returned to the village, things had only gotten worse. More people had fallen ill, and strange claw marks were found outside the huts of those who had vanished. The villagers looked at us with desperation in their eyes. I could feel their fear and their hopelessness. We needed to act fast. We decided to use the truth stone to expose whatever creature was hiding among us. Inenna told me that the stone would only work if the creature was near, so we had to draw it out. That night, we set a trap, a grand feast, just like the one when Adaku first arrived. We prepared everything as if nothing was wrong, hoping to lure the creature into believing we were unaware of its presence. The villagers gathered, but no one was eating. Their eyes darted nervously around the square, waiting for something to happen. And then I saw her. She moved through the crowd with unnatural grace. Her eyes darted from one person to another, but no one seemed to notice. She looked human, perfectly human. But I knew better. I held the truth stone tightly, feeling its heat pulsing through my fingers. The creature, disguised as one of the villagers, moved toward the center of the feast. I stood raising the truth stone high. The moment I did, it began to glow brighter than before, casting a harsh light across the village square. The creature froze. The light wrapped around it, peeling away its human form. In a horrific transformation, the creature revealed its true self. A massive, writhing serpent, its scales shimmering with dark magic. The villagers screamed, some running for their lives. But I couldn't move. My legs were rooted to the ground as I stared into the eyes of the beast. It lunged at me, its fangs bared, but the light from the stone held it back. The battle was chaos, villagers throwing spears, others lighting torches. Chitty and I fought with everything we had, but the serpent was fast, too fast. Nina, frail as she was, stepped forward, chanting ancient words that filled the air with power. The serpent shrieked in pain, recoiling from the sound, and in a final desperate strike, I thrust the truth stone toward its head. The light exploded from the stone, and with a final hiss, the serpent disintegrated into ash, its body dissolving into the wind. The creature was gone, but the village would never be the same. The sickness lifted, and those who had survived slowly returned to their lives, but the fear lingered. Every whisper of the wind, every shadow in the trees, made us wonder if something else was out there, watching and waiting. I couldn't shake the feeling that we hadn't seen the last of this evil. The serpent may be dead, but I knew there were others like it, hidden, waiting for the right moment to strike. We had the truth stone, but even its light couldn't erase the darkness that lived in our world. I still hear the hissing at night.
If you found this interesting, please like and subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.